This is the new Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, and if I could describe it in 2 words, it would be insurance policy. Let me explain. So firstly, you have to put this phone into context. This is Samsung's 2023 Apex Predator. They offer some brilliant alternatives for lower budgets, including even the rest of the S23 line, that are great options for lower prices, but for some, only the pinnacle will do. So for that elite status, you would expect the Ultra to be a near flawless Samsung product. Do we get it? Almost. Samsung have, under the radar, refined the Ultra from last year to a point where, on paper, probably to most, it would seem an insignificant upgrade. But I would argue, actually stealthily significant in a few key areas. And it's actually also got me thinking that I actually need something that I previously thought I'd put behind me. For the last year or so, I've kind of mentally been moving away from the curved display. Ever since their inception in around the Samsung S6 series of phones, what an absolute beast that was. One of my favourite tech products ever. Let me know in the comments if you had that phone. But I've recently been back on the flat screen train of late. But this S23 Ultra display is something else. The phone kind of fuses both previous models to an almost perfection effect. It has all the practicality and precision of the S21 Ultra's flatter display, but has all the beauty and charisma of the S22 Ultra's rear. Raunchy? This seamless back panel oozes class and comfortability, but the extremely subtle curved edges of this now larger, flatter surface area has got me really feeling like this is a sweet spot. Much more user-friendly, typing is easier, and accidental edge touches feel non-existent, but it still maintains that incredibly immersive viewing experience that only really Samsung flagships can provide. Samsung are just the kings of smartphone display technology. A 6.8-inch 120Hz dynamic AMOLED 2X panel with a peak brightness of around 1750 nits, which is staggeringly bright. And there's a new advanced vision booster feature which can alter the colour and contrast for 3 different lighting conditions, protecting those beautiful little eyes of yours. I do feel Samsung's next leap would possibly be to increase that refresh rate even further, maybe go 144Hz or higher, and that could have been implemented this year for that added improvements to high frame rate gaming, for example. But even as is, I think you would be hard pushed to find a phone that was as good for that area. And this leads me on to my first real key change on the S23 Ultra this year that most average consumers probably wouldn't appreciate if it's read out to them. But it has a key difference, a big difference for those people anywhere outside of the US and China. Samsung have finally gone all in on Qualcomm for their chip usage, which means all regions will be shipping with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, no Exynos variants, which, for if you're not aware, basically if you're from the UK or Europe as examples, you would have been getting, technically in recent years, a lesser device than your US and China counterparts, just because of that specific chip difference. Minor, but important in certain situations, camera, gaming, etc. Not anymore. And on top of that, Samsung have gone one step further and they've worked closely with Qualcomm to produce a Samsung Galaxy only Gen 2 variant for Galaxy. So 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy. And it's, in layman's terms, a overclocked version. So in theory, you should be getting an even faster, more powerful version than standard flagships that are going to be using the 8 Gen 2 in the early part of this year, making it on paper the most powerful Android smartphone on the planet. And I'll certainly be testing that this week, so subscribe for that. But it's not just the chip here. Samsung have also gone with up to 1 terabyte of UFS 4.0 storage, which is an upgrade from the S22 Ultra from last year, and up to 12 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM for considerably faster speeds and better power efficiency. So again, in theory, we should be getting better battery performance for that same 5000 mAh cell. Now, Samsung made a lot of fuss about their new 200 megapixel main camera sensor, but what does that actually mean for you? Well, it might not actually be the best part of the new camera. The new adaptive pixel sensor can combine 16 pixels into one larger pixel, so that even in the darkest of conditions, you can still achieve great results. Night portraits and just portraits on the whole, whether that be on the rear or on that front-facing camera, which has been upgraded to a 12 megapixel sensor in the short time that I've been playing around with it, look stunning. The 200 megapixel What is wrong with me? Why can't I say megapixel? The 200 megapixel count. Forgotten the rest of what I was going to say now. The 200 megapixel count is almost double that of last year. And while we know high megapixel count, I'm just going to stop saying megapixel. It's just ridiculous at this point. We know that high MPs don't mean everything when it comes to camera. This added information for greater details, especially when cropping in or blowing it up on a large picture, canvas, etc., it's going to be evident. And importantly, Samsung claim that the 200 million pixels are there to also help with a better autofocus, maintaining a sharp subject. Now, this is something that I've been personally hoping for an improvement in with Samsung phones for the last few years. Keeping that focus sharp, especially if there is a moving subject, to avoid any kind of real motion blur, has always been something that I think could be upped on Samsung phones of late. And this is a big if, and I'll update you soon, if they've been able to improve this, whether that be through the higher pixel count or through optimization of things like shutter speed to a Google Pixel level where it just snaps and then does a lot of processing in the background, then I'm positive this will be the best smartphone camera in existence. The way the AI not only enhances the bokeh effect by accurately analysing the distance of the objects and separating the background from the subject, it also analyses hair strands, eyes and skin separately to produce some incredible end results. You also have a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera with 120 degrees field of view and two 10 megapixel telephoto lenses, one with 3 times optical zoom and the other with 10. The video capabilities have also seen a jump with the new adaptive VDIS, which helps to improve stabilization by analyzing and subdividing movements and lighting conditions, along with the new OIS angle, which is twice as large as the S22 Ultra. This, on top of the new noise reduction technology, should mean nighttime videos will have better sharpness and detail, and if nighttime photography is really your thing, you might enjoy the new Astro Hyperlapse mode that kicks in if you select 300 times in hyperlapse, helping you take clips of the night sky without the need for special equipment. And of course, there is your 8K video with now up to 30 frames per second and a wider angle for more cinematic footage, and all your tried and tested customizable camera modes also, like single take, portrait video, director's view, and much more, including a new expert RAW option, which means you can shoot in 50 megapixel mode in the app. Now, Samsung haven't just created an elite flagship phone though. They've managed to reduce their environmental impact, but still give you a better device. The S23 Ultra not only uses double the recycled components over the S22 Ultra, using recycled aluminium, plastics and glass, but crucially, that glass is not inferior as a result of its 22% pro-consumer recycled materials. It's actually more durable. It's now calling Gorilla Glass Victus 2. And I haven't even talked about the built-in S Pen, which in itself is a huge addition that you simply don't really get anywhere else, the DeX compatibility for increasing productivity and workflow, and just a hugely impressive Samsung ecosystem as a whole. So many people believe we've almost reached peak smartphone status, where year-on-year upgrades quite simply aren't necessary. There's not enough to warrant that outlay. And while on paper, the S23 Ultra kind of reaffirms that idea, the key points they focused on may not seem huge. It may not seem like a seismic shift product, but if you scratch beneath the surface, what they've done with the S23 Ultra is they've quite possibly managed to tick the most amount of boxes of any smartphone, and this could run right to the end of the year. They've created the insurance policy, the guarantee that almost anything that you want to do on a phone, you can now pretty much do it. And if their OneUI 5.1 software is your thing, then whatever phone you're coming from, I don't think you're necessarily going to sit there and say, I'm disappointed. Different, sure. A few teething issues getting used to it, maybe. But not disappointed. AirDrop maybe aside. That thing is just ridiculous. Oh, and it's slightly pricey, coming in starting from £1,249. Phantom Black, Cream, Lavender or Green, Hey, that rhymed. What are those colours that you would go for or have gone for? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see further Samsung coverage in the next few days, then subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications so that when I post, you are notified. My name's Adam. You've been the best as always. I love you, Neely. I'll see you in the next one. ASBYT, peace out.